Welcome to Power Your Profits podcast, your friendly guide in bringing your business revenue to the next level. Listen as host Dr. Susie Carter hears inspiring stories of success from her fellow entrepreneurs and transformational leaders. Prepare to make significant change to your strategies as they unravel the secrets of building multi-million-dollar businesses and the most effective tips on finance, marketing, and sales accountability. If you want to take your first steps towards explosive business growth, this podcast is for you. Without further ado, here is your host, Dr. Susie.
Hey, you want to learn some wealth hacks? Want to learn how to scale your business without being tied to your computer, a stage, or your business? Well, my next guest, Charles Schwartz, is a wealth hacking consultant, speaker, angel investor, and coach, best known for coaching entrepreneurs on how to retire. Yes, along with persona shifting workshops. Charles' book, Who Changes Everything, is an insight and a powerful tool that allowed him to retire at 36, become a millionaire at 37. He's been invited to speak at Yale at 38. He is a money man and is going to give us tools and techniques to help us today. Okay, well, I am so excited. We were talking in the green room, and Charles is my brother from another mother. We have the same philosophy on building business and strategy. So tell everyone, Charles, your secret sauce, and what are we going to talk about today?
So we are definitely related. I think it comes from just having done it, the practical of it, because you get all these ideas, and we were talking in the green room earlier, just make your item for $47 and you'll sit back and relax and millions. No, this is not how it works. We get this mindset because of brute force. We've done this. You and I both grew up. I grew up poor. I couldn't afford the last 3 letters of poor. So you just had to figure it out on your way to get there. When it comes to secret sauce scaling, it's all about systems. You have to systematize. You've got to get yourself you got to get your ego out of the way. You have to make it so that before you even start your business, you know how you're going to sell it. Because whatever you're doing right now, I guarantee you're not going to want to be doing it in about 2-3 years. It's just the reality of it. You're just going to want to systematize it, scale it, and then do it, have the freedom you get from it. But there's a lot of things that get in people's way, and the number one thing is themselves. But we can talk about that later.
Well, what I do know with entrepreneurs, and I love, when people get a little bit more sophisticated, they go, you don't want to sell your time. You don't want to own a job, but they're still selling their time, still own a job because they might be doing programs, they might be having employees, but they're overpaying, over leveraging. They're still making the least amount of money on everyone on the team. I'm like, you still own a job, by the way. Yeah. It's not any
100%.
different because you think you're not selling your time. You still are. Right. So let's talk about that. What do you see are the lies that are sabotaging client success or our success?
Wow. The biggest lie is that they think they matter to the organization. You don't. You're replaceable. The only person, even when you have someone like Steve Jobs who comes in, he's like, we're never going to sell the iPad minis as long as I'm alive. I'm the most important. He dies. The next year, they release the iPad minis and it just crushes all the sales for a really long time. The reality is you're building a business. You're not building yourself a platform to say that you're special. Get out of the way. Hire people that are smarter than you, systematize it, and get out of the way. The second thing that people think is like, oh, I'm going to work for myself and I'm going to work 30 to 40 hours a week. I'm like, I'm sorry, did you say a day or did you say a week? Because I'm not really sure you got that right. When you first start out as an entrepreneur, you've got to do this. You got to put the time in. It's going to take a lot of work. But with that said, I hate this culture of hustle porn, this grind where you get up and I need to get up at 4:00 in the morning and have 17 meetings and I've worked out 15 times. And this is why you're not going to be successful. Oh, it's 5 a.m. now. I need to work out 7. That is not how to do it. You have to be able to use systems. You have to be able to leverage other people, outsource your weaknesses, double down on your strengths, and understand that just because you like your product doesn't matter. People don't buy products and services. They buy stories, identities, and ways out of pain. And if you're selling vitamins, that's useless. Sell pain relief and then scale off of that. But if you can't identify the pain that your audience is in, and you're just trying to say, hey, I'm special, look at me, you lose all day, every day.
I love it. You said hustle porn. Did you all hear that? He said hustle porn. I love that. I had to write it down twice. That's so great. Got a couple other analogies like that. They'll probably pop up when we're talking on our last conversation, which I love. So I know
definitely will.
Systems and systems sound so esoteric to some people, and it doesn't have to be that hard. But you also talk about, wealth hacks. So let's talk about, because that's, to me, money is a system. right? When you understand, I lost millions in the market and thought my life was over. I wanted my life to be over. I tried so hard.
I've been there as well.
And then
Yeah.
realized, oh, I know how to build wealth. It's systemic. If you just follow the system and discipline, right? You got to be disciplined. You can't just, spend money, which we watch entrepreneurs do it every day. So let's talk about your biggest wealth hacks that you've used, because you did retire at an early age. You were 36, multi-millionaire, 37, so let's talk about your wealth hacks and what you learned in doing it wrong and doing it right.
So I was very lucky early on because I didn't have money. I developed and I learned who I was with that because I had a very hostile relationship with money. I had a scarcity mentality and it freaked me out. And I would talk to these advisors and I talk to these coaches and I would talk to I'm getting insight. I'm hiring people that are smarter than me. And I was lucky enough to work in a hospice. And for those of you who don't know what a hospice is, it's a place you go to die. Hospitals keep you alive. Hospices kill you. I spent 8 years working in them. One. And I sat down in these rooms because I was rolling out what's known as an EMR solution, electronic medical records. And I sat with people who were just unbelievably wealthy. I said, what's the secret? And universally, they all said the same thing. Don't invest in anything you don't understand. I had it. One of my guys came to me. He's like, hey, there's this really virtual money thing. It's like $100. You should invest in it. And I was like, I am not going to invest in virtual money. I don't understand. It was Bitcoin. Completely screwed the pitch. Google opened up, missed that one too. But what I knew was I knew real estate. And I was like, hey, real estate is wealth. So I'm just going to double down and focus on this. The biggest wealth I had was buy things that make you money, period. Live underneath your means and then buy things that make you money. And then when it came to, and I know this doesn't make sense for most entrepreneurs, when you're building your system, write out everything you do across the board, the entire process in one color marker, like a black marker. I do this with all my clients and they write it out. I said, good. Now give me the cap to the red marker and go circle everywhere that you are. The minute that marker touches the paper or the wall that they do, I throw the cap at them with everything I have. I used to be a minor league pitcher. I hit him in the back of the head. I'm like, you failed. You have to fire yourself. That has created me more wealth than anything else when it comes to hacking. Go in, look at the business because I've acquired businesses, I've systems, I've scaled them. I studied and said, okay, where am I mission critical to this? If that's happening, that's my problem. Because it's kind of like having a Ferrari deliver pizza. It doesn't make any sense. There's things in your organization you shouldn't be doing. So I could exponentially increase my wealth when I hired people that I could systematize, give them that information and say, hey, this is the next step. And then as far as everything else, real estate. I was very lucky before COVID happened. I had an advisor saying, get out of all commercial real estate. And I was like, why? He goes, it's over. And I was like, why? And it was right before. And I was like, okay. And I was working with him and I was like, all right, I don't know what to do. And I sold everything. And I was terrified. I rolled into 1031 exchanges. We then put it into residential. And I just watched the entire, as you obviously know, went douche. And I dodged a bullet.
I was 2008. That was that market that I crashed in 2008. I didn't have anyone saying, get out. I was like, wait, what's happening? What's happening? Dorothy.
So bad. And then it was funny because everyone's like, oh, you dodged all these bullets. I'm like, yes, but I caught so many other bullets. I had to do a short sale on a property on the West Coast of Florida, which is now worth a bazillion. And I had never done that. And in order to do a short sale, just as a quick note, you have to stop paying the mortgage. And you and I talked about this before. I couldn't stop paying the mortgage because I was just coded in me. I was like, pay your bills. And my lawyer sat down and goes, paying it. And I was like, oh. So no, I've had some failures. You're not a true entrepreneur until you've lost your first million. That's just it is what it is. You got to lose at least your first million. You will lose more than that.
And we can say that laugh now because we've on the other side of it. But when you're losing the millions, it is painful. It sucks. It's hard.
I can barely laugh about it. It's heart-wrenching. It's hard, especially when it happens, because it's going to happen from bad business decisions. It's going to happen from the market changing. But when it happens from business partners or family members or things of that nature, those wounds take an immense amount of time to heal. And I'm still trying to recover from some of those.
You're listening to another episode of Power Your Profits podcast. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Are you tired of pouring resources into strategies that don't work? Say hello to Dr. Susie Carter, your future fractional COO. With Dr. Susie in your corner, your business can skyrocket to 7 figures and beyond. With a track record of creating thriving businesses, trust that you are in good hands. Head over to coo.poweryourprofits.com and let us put some magic into your business growth. Overwhelmed by the complexity of business profit strategies? Jump aboard the Bullet Train to Big Profits course. a streamlined solution by Dr. Susie Carter. This course is designed to uncomplicate the path to profitability. Imagine being able to identify and execute profit strategies with ease, skyrocketing your revenues. Visit course.poweryourprofits.com and sign up for the Bullet Train to Big Profits course today.
I got you. I told you you're my brother, right? Definitely have experienced those. So let's talk about persona shifting, because I think that's huge, right? When you look at who you are being in your business, what do we need to do to shift our persona? What do we need to get clear on the persona? Because it amazes me how people run $1 million companies and still do not know their avatar that they're marketing to and that person they're marketing to. They're trying to, sell a widget and gidget. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So when we get into personas, everyone comes in and they're understanding that it's not just who you're marketing to. It's not just who understanding that, because we get into that. If you don't know how to do that, hire a marketing company, get out of the way. When we talk about personas, it's you as an individual. For example, if you go look at Susie's podcast, she's going to give you tons and tons of tactics, and you're not going to implement them. You're just not. You're going to go and you're going to listen to the podcast. You're going to go and you're going to go to Tony Robbins event. You're going to go to these events and and you're not going to implement it and you can just sit there and read and read and read. And when I was doing this and I was getting 30% every quarter growth, and I was teaching other people exactly what I was doing, they weren't implementing it. And I was like, okay, there's a problem here. Something's wrong. And it wasn't until I discovered personas that it figured it out. And it starts with the understanding that you're living and understanding there's 3 lies. The lie of what, the lie of how, and the last one I'll surprise you with. So the first one is the lie of how. Everyone says, I don't know how to do that. Do you have access to Google? Yes. Then shut up. You know how to do that. The game's over. That's
I always say, if you did know,
like
if you had to make it up, what would it be? Because you're smart.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You don't get to hang out with people who are not smart, right? You got some, use your brain. Okay, sorry, that was my band.
Absolutely.
So I agree.
No, it's okay. No, and it's NLP. It's like, I know you don't know, but if you did know, what would it be? And we'll spit out the answer. It's like, duh. The next one, and we use that all the time as coaches. The next one is do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. I love ice cream and sushi on levels I can't possibly explain to you. If you make me eat it nonstop in the next 2 months, I'm going to kill you with an ice cream cone. I'm going to stab you in the head with an ice cream cone, because we like that variety as human beings. That just doesn't work. You have someone like Michael Jordan who loves playing basketball, but he'd rather be playing golf. If you make what you love, what you do, you won't love it anymore. And the last one, which I always hide from everybody, is the lie of why. This thing is, if your why was strong enough, you would do that. When I worked in hospice, people would sit there and go, oh, well, if she loved her daughter enough, she would have quit smoking. Or these type of things, this argument of why. And when I'm on stage, I talk to people all the time and I go, hey, does anybody not know why they want to lose weight? Does anybody not know why they want to make $10 million? Is anybody not clear on their why in any way, shape, or form? And everyone's clear. I'm like, cool, how many of you actually do it? And that's where personas come into play. We all have different versions of ourselves. And there's a version of us that doesn't think we're enough. We're not tall enough. We're not short enough. We're not curvy enough. We're too curvy. We're not blonde enough. We're not brunette enough. Whatever it is, whatever that laundry list is, you have a version of you that is who you are. You have another version of you that's an unstoppable force, that that I am just a woman. I am just a man. I can't say that word on your podcast. I am that. If I give all my skills and all my techniques and all my tactics and all of Susie has to the first version of you, what happens? Versus if I give 10% to this other version of you, what results do you get? And the reality is most of us are coming in this version that we built to avoid pain, to avoid suffering, not to have success, not to have access to love, but to come in this environment and we struggle through. So we'll read a book and then nothing happens because the version of you that broke it can't fix it. It's a bit like going to a 3-year-old and handing them cereal. They're going to eat it and make a mess. That's their job. And then going to that same 3-year-old and say, here's a broom and a mop, and expecting that 3-year-old to fix it. It's impossible. It's a 3-year-old, for God's sake.
Right.
It's the same thing that's happening in our lives as entrepreneurs. We get all this knowledge and we don't implement it because we're stuck in the version of us that broke it. And we don't have the ability to pivot out of it. Once we pivot out of it, radical change. Instantaneous radical change. I've been doing it for 20 years with my clients. It happens instantaneously. Kind of wild.
I love it. So what would you say is the biggest way to shift if reading a book's not going to do it? Most people aren't changing. And I agree with you, by the way, but I want to hear your take on it.
So
each
version of you lives in your body somewhere. So if I asked you, take your dominant hand, kind of go up and down your body without touching, where are you breathing now? Some people are like on the top of my chest or my stomach or my hip or my head or wherever. Where do you feel your breath? And say, cool. When was the last time you were on a roller coaster? And they're like, oh yeah, I remember. I'm like, where are you breathing now? And they're like, okay. I'm like, cool. When was the last time you had really bad cramps or you were really constipated? Like, oh, I'm here. Cool. When was the last time you had an orgasm that was so amazing you forgot your name? Oh, I'm breathing here. Awesome. When was the last time you felt like you were not enough? And you'll watch them go and just collapse. And cool. Now, when was the last time you felt like you were the Mac Daddy? That you were just amazing? And they're like, oh, here. I'm like, cool. Now I'm going to ask you different questions. Breathe into this spot versus breathing into that other spot. And you teach people to breathe into it. And that's your first step, is just figuring out who you're showing up as. Because again, there are times where I've done very high-end negotiations and before I'm going in, clients or whatever we're doing, I'm like, stop, where are you breathing? And they're like, oh crap, well, let's do it. And there's different ways to trigger it, be it music or flows, or they're called triggers. And you can amp yourself up. The perfume you wear, the clothes you wear, how you do your hair, all of those things will change which version you are, but we've never cultivated this. We've never sat down and built it. Because remember, each one of us has been designed to avoid pain, not to gain access to success or love. It's just to avoid pain. If I do this, I won't get hurt. Because that's all your brain really cares about, right? Is it going to kill me? Can I eat it? Or can I propagate with it?
Right.
I cleaned it up because it's your podcast. I normally make it much more vulgar.
You can feel free. You can feel free.
I'll make a little worse going forward. But it goes through those three things. But it never goes through what's going to make me joyful. And most people never have that conversation. Like, hey, I'm going to do this because mommy and daddy wanted me to do this, or mommy didn't love me, or daddy didn't love me, or I was married to someone for, in your case, 17 years and he evac. I need to build this version. It's kind of like in your story where you're like, hey, you did phenomenal stuff with hair salon. And then your people are coming to you like, hey, can you business coach me? Like, I don't know anything about that. And you pivoted and you went like, listen, I'm not a hair person. I know entrepreneurs. I know businesses. You had this pivot into a completely different version of you. The version of you that first built the hair salons and all that couldn't do what you're doing now. She just didn't have that capacity in any way, shape, or form. Pivoting from one to the other is mission critical. And if you don't do that, I don't care if Tony Robbins is holding your butt right there or Susie comes in and lives in your house. If you do not pivot, you will not. If you don't master that persona, you won't get the success you want. It's just not impossible.
Well, I think the reality, and it's so truthful, right? We do this unconsciously. So what Charles is giving us is a systemic way to tap into that, right? So that it's not on accident. Most entrepreneurs are successful on accidents. Well, success leaves clues. So what did you do? Because it's painful. It was painful to go through that pivot. I was like, who am I now if I don't do this? I had a non-compete in the beauty industry, and they're like, you can't teach in this industry anymore. I'm like, what do you mean? What do I do? Who am I now? Right. And so they're like you said, the pain made me choose something different because I was very similar to you, but I was 40. So I was a couple of years, older and had just retired and had been there for about 2 years, like taking some time off and to enjoy this process. I'm like, this is boring. I miss my people. I miss the work. I miss the hustle and the not hustle porn though, but
very different. Very different. Well, I think you tapped in on it. Everything starts with pain. Pain won't sustain you, but it'll get your engine going. You sit there and people are like, oh, I don't know how to lose weight. If I put a lion behind you, you magically go learn how to run. You've got to have some sort of pain that moves you. Our body, the human psyche, will always yield to comfort. It's why so many businesses don't scale. There's so many clients that come to me and they're like, hey, I'm making $1 million. I'm making $5 million. I want to make 10, 50, whatever. I'm like, all right, what type of pain are you in? And they're like, what? I'm like, you're not a client for me. If you're not, because my clients show up not when they're having bad days, because entrepreneurs don't have bad days. We have days where we don't want to have any more days. And those are the days that I show up like, let's take some radical change. Because if you're kind of comfortable and it's kind of working, you're not going to make the change. Be it your relationships with your spouse, with your kids, with yourself, with your fitness, whatever it is, if you aren't in pain, it's not going to work. This is why I came on here and I gave you all the secrets of here's email marketing and here's this and how you use AI and all of that. It's not going to do anything unless you pivot who you are. Because again, there's a bazillion things on YouTube. You can type in anything, click a button, you're going to get it. You're just not implementing. If you're not implementing it, it's either because you don't know who you are or you're not in enough pain. And I wish there was a different way. I wish I could do it from joy and happiness. I'm like, you know what? I had this vision of I'm going to take baby bears. And no, it's not going to do it. Until someone lights a fire under your ass, you're not going to move. That's just human nature for most of us.
Okay. So what are you doing now? How are you spending your time now? Right. Because now you're in a new season. Right.
Yes.
So what are you spending your time doing now, and how are you leveraging all the things that you've done in the past to this new site?
So I got very similar to you. I got bored. And as soon as I got bored, I was like, I can't do this. I need a new puzzle. And that's what it was for me. Entrepreneurship and business is a puzzle. I was like, oh, there's a new thing to figure out. And people found out that I wasn't working anymore. Like, hey, can I hire you to scale my business? And I was like, oh, I don't really want to coach anymore. They're like, well, we'll give you half the company. And I was like, okay, this is different. And I would go in and I would scale people's businesses, and then we would exit out and I would get the profit, or there's some of the businesses I still own and I'm still getting residuals from them. And then I use that money and I buy assets. Because if you're getting money and you're not having to work for you, as you already know, because if you listen to Susie, she'll tell you about this. If you're not building assets, you lose. From there, that got old, because it's exhausting, because you got to sit there and you got to go into the culture and you have to redesign the culture of the organization. You have to work with people and you have to work with owners who are a pain in the ass. And
They're
you've got to work
cuckoo.
through that
We're
process.
cuckoo. I can say it because I'm an owner, right? We're cuckoo. Like entrepreneurs
Oh
are
God,
cuckoo, and
it's
we
a
have
pain in the ass.
magical thinking. Like it's just gonna
Oh,
happen.
I'm important. I'm the most important one. Oh my God. So, because well, again, it's kind of like Tarzan, and I'll get back to the to answer the question. But it's kind of like Tarzan. You go from one vine and you grab another vine. You got to let go of the first one. If not, you stall your momentum. So many founders are like, okay, what got me here, they think is going to get them there. No, you got to let go of what worked. And sometimes of letting go means I need to get you out of the way. I need you to become a CEO. I need you to actually stop being an operator and be an owner. And that is a hard ego pivot for most founders. They can't let go of their quote unquote baby. And the reality is, if you died tomorrow and the business is somehow still alive, it's just going to replace you anyway. So just get that out of the way. You're not that important to day-to-day operations.
Right.
And if you are day-to-day operations, then you're just over broke. You own a job. You have failed as a human being, and when it comes as an entrepreneur. So back to the question. It started, the whole journey kind of started with a bet. A friend of mine, we were having dinner, and this is about 2 years ago. He goes, I bet 10K you can't create 100,000 followers. I was like, I can. He's like, that's fine. So I grew it, and I was like, well, I'm gonna tell everybody how to do it. And I did that. I was like, that was fun. And then he's like, and then we were sitting there with other friends. He's like, I bet you can't rank and scale a podcast. And I was like, yeah, I can. So I went in and I did it. Because again, there's this joke: Jesus didn't walk on water; he just knew where the rocks are. Success leaves clues. You just need to know where the rocks are. So I would use these rocks, and I started a podcast, which was, the Iron Charles Schwartz show, and it ranked, and then I stopped it because it became fluff.
Right.
I became a talk show host, which was, people come like, oh my God, you wrote a book? I have no idea what a book is. Tell me what that is. And I hated it. So I redesigned the whole thing. And we're in the process now of launching a new podcast, which is going through and it's showing people exactly what to do. So I don't want to know the backstory. I bring people on. I don't want to know your story. I don't know where you came from. I don't want to know what you're special. I want you to take one part that has made you XYZ dollars, and I want you to tell me how to do it in detail. We had a guy who was one of the best email marketers in the world. I said, great. Tell me the basic idea. And he told me the journey. I was like, cool. Now give me 2 to 3 examples of this. And he's okay, cool. I said, I'm going to give it to him. He's like, okay. I said, now this next one with a reply, give me 3 or 4 examples of that. He's like, okay. So we take these podcasts and then I give it away as a lab report. So it's tangible things that people will pull over and actually take notes to do. So, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to help out and I do this for me, and it's not, it's just how I am. I'm still that poor kid who couldn't afford to keep the lights on. I'm
Right.
still that kid, and I'm trying to help him out. That's who I'm talking to when I'm on stage. That's what I'm talking to here. I'm always talking to that poor kid who's broke. I'm always talking to that single mom who's just screwed and they don't know how to, they can't eat, but they're going to make their kids eat. I'm like, what little thing can I give them that's going to radically change their life? So the podcast is a big part of that, because privately, I don't coach anymore. It's exhausting. I'm like, I don't know. And you and I are simply, we only take 6 clients on. I'm like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. No, thank you. I'm out. So this was a way for me to give back. And then of course there is a monetization bet that I'm working on with a friend of mine to see how fast we can scale this into a couple other things. But I can't reveal that yet.
Yes, but that's exciting. Right? It's another puzzle. I think that's what
Everything's a puzzle.
entrepreneurship is. We get to make it up. And when you have your mindset right, you have your why, like, why am I doing it? And I love that you do have that. I want to make a difference for people, because that's my why is, I believe my gift from God is my life. My gift back to God is, what do I make of my life? And not me, Susie. What do I do for Charles? What do I do for Sam? What do I do for Alicia or Angela? Or like, what's that thing I'm giving back? And of course, law of reciprocity, it comes back to me tenfold. And so we know that, right, from doing this over and over and over again. And so what's one thing I should have asked you, Charles?
Oh God. I don't know. I mean, maybe what is the biggest failures? Because because failure is the only way to succeed. I think that's the biggest thing that people don't understand. If I had to give one piece of advice or one thing that you should have asked, I would tell people you need to fail light years faster than you succeed, because you're not gonna, when you're a little kid, You have a little baby and they get up and they walk and they fall, and they get up and they walk and they fall. After 4 or 5 times, we as humans say, oh, well, you know what? That kid's useless. Throw it in the garbage. We're going to make another one. Not at all. We sit there, we encourage that. Come on, do it again, do it again, do it again.
Right.
Somehow our school system rips that away from us. It says, oh, you got an F. You're not good enough. You need to go to detention. We're going to take this away from you. And that's just the wrong mentality. In whatever you're doing, be it entrepreneurship or not entrepreneurship, I need you to start failing faster. I talk about this when I hire people. If I have one position open, I will hire 6 people all at the same time. And I'm just going to keep one of them. And I know I'm going to fire 5 of them, and maybe I even fire 6. But I'm never, instead of me spending 6 months trying to figure out which is going to cost me more money and more time, I'm just going to fail as fast as I possibly can. So whenever I'm hiring, whenever I'm working with clients that are hiring, I was like, cool, we have a position, hire 5 times more than you need, minimum. And they're like, really? I'm like, they're going to be gone in 2 weeks anyway. We're going to know exactly. It's kind of like when you go on a date, within about 5 seconds if it's a yes or a no. Same thing in business. Just rapid fire out faster and just get out of your own way. Fail as fast as you possibly can, and then pivot which version you want. Because again, I guarantee you, if you don't have the life you want, it's your fault. If you're not making the money you want, it's your fault. When you look at numbers in your life, your bank account, or the numbers coming back on you on the scale, that's completely your choice. You did that, period. And you have to own that and realize that this version of me broke it. It's not going to fix it. I need a persona shift. I need a shift out of that. And if I don't, it doesn't matter what strategies doesn't matter what strategy Susie gives you. None of it matters until you learn how to get the hell out of your own way and have a different version of you drive your car.
Yeah, we always say the bigger you play, the bigger the breakdown. Now, I don't like it when my team says that back to me. But it's true, right? It's like, okay, what do we need to, what's the lesson here? What's the lesson here? What's the lesson here? Versus I'm dumb. I didn't get it. I'm not smart enough. I can't do it. No, what's the lesson? What's the lesson? What's the lesson? Quicker, faster, quicker, faster. Charles, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for your gifts. Thank you for your generosity and your time. I can't wait for the new podcast. I can't wait to see it in your new project. I'm going to stalk you to find out. Right. So if this message, spoke to you, or somebody needs to hear this message, I need you to forward this podcast to them. Please go stalk Charles, right? Charles Schwartz, go Google him. He's on the first 3 pages, right? Everywhere. You can go read his stuff. Juicy, juicy, juicy. Thank you, my brother from another mother. I appreciate you. And we look forward to watching your rise and your next dreams come true.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Power Your Profits podcast. Let these building blocks from today's most successful industry leaders equip you with the necessary resources and tools to finally establish the highly profitable business of your dreams. Want to hear more? Listen to more episodes at www.poweryourprofitspodcast.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the show. Now is your time to rise to the top of your game. So be sure to catch our next episode. Until next time.